Let's talk about our stupid rookie slow travel mistakes that we've made so far and how to avoid them, starting with mistake number 1. We didn't book our transportation first.
Yeah, it was time for us to leave Porto and go to Seville, and we did our research. We found the perfect lodging for us in Seville, and we made our reservations, and then we went and looked for airfare and found out the airplane didn't fly on that day. So it was kind of a hassle. We had to check out a day early from our Airbnb in Porto. We had to reserve an extra night in a hotel in Seville to cover this overlap from when the flight left until we could check into our lodging. It just cost us extra time and money, and we learned our lesson. Basically, book your transportation before your lodging.
Our second rookie mistake is that we mispacked. We have 2 checked bags. They're medium-sized checked bags, and we each have a small carry-on. JP has a backpack, and I have a tote. But we were not prepared for cold weather. We were used to Ecuador weather, and we kind of forgot what cold felt like. So we did not have the right clothes.
That meant we had to go shopping and buy clothes. And I also have stuff in my suitcase I haven't worn. I have shorts, short-sleeve shirts I haven't worn. I even have flip-flops, have not needed any of them. They've been taking up space in my suitcase without having a need for them this whole time.
And I did bring some long sleeve shirts, but it still was not enough. I had to go buy some layering pieces, so I bought some lightweight sweaters. I actually had to buy a winter coat because I did not have one. I was really hopeful I could just get away with a jacket, and that was not the case.
The reason why we packed all of that stuff and we didn't really need it is because we knew we were going to be gone for a long time, and we thought, well, when the weather gets nice, we're going to need that stuff. But unfortunately, it just didn't make sense. It's taking up space that we could have used for other things. We may have even been able to get away with 1 checked bag instead of 2 had we not packed a bunch of stuff we don't need until months from the time we left.
Our third mistake is that we didn't chase the sun. We came to Europe in October, which was nice because it wasn't as crowded. It's low season for tourism, but the weather was not that great. And also we were there for winter and it got dark at 4:20, which we were not used to at all. Plus parts were cold and rainy. Therefore, the clothes that we had to have and had to buy were bulky and heavy.
So what we're going to do going forward is chase the sun. We're going to go to warmer temperatures where there's more daylight, or at least consistent daylight. So we're going to spend these cold northern hemisphere months in the southern hemisphere or the tropics like Southeast Asia, Mexico, and South. And when it's cold in the southern hemisphere, we're going to come to the northern hemisphere. That will mean we don't have to pack nearly as much of that bulky, heavy clothes and deal with those short daylight days. I mean, I couldn't believe it when I looked at the map, and it's going to get dark at 4:20 in the afternoon, and I barely had gotten out of bed.
I know we are not used to that. As we've been traveling, we've realized how spoiled we have been by Ecuador of having that 12 hours of consistent daylight. That takes its toll on you when you are suddenly thrown into, 8 hours of daylight. That's a big change.
Our next mistake is we didn't communicate enough with our host when we first started this. That actually caused us quite a few problems.
It did. When we first got to Seville, we wanted an early check-in the next day to our Airbnb from our hotel, but we forgot to confirm that. And the morning of, we were trying desperately to get a hold of the Airbnb host, and we cannot get a hold of them. We went ahead and checked out of our hotel and showed up at our Airbnb thinking we could get in early, and we could not.
Yeah, so we were knocking on the door, and we were afraid that it was one of those bait and switch things or just like a ghosted host. And finally, somebody answered the door, and it turned out their office was in the first floor, and they were able to at least hold our luggage for us in their office that was full of employees, and Amelia's digging through her luggage in the middle of their office because we packed everything and we weren't prepared to not be able to check in, and we had to go waste a few hours before we could come back. And then they put our luggage right in the front window, completely in street view. It wasn't an ideal situation. We should have communicated with them better the day before. Yeah, the next thing you want to communicate about is the internet speeds, if that's important to you, like it is for us. In Seville and Granada and Malaga and several other places, the internet speeds have not been great. We learned now to actually message ahead of time if they don't list that on their listing, or if the hotel, sometimes they don't even list it. We message, say, what is your internet speed there, upload and download, because as YouTubers, we need to be able to upload multi-gig videos to our YouTube channel. And if the internet speed is 1 meg, we can't really do that. So we've learned a message, and if they don't put it on the listing, or if it's not in the reviews anywhere, then we ask them for a screenshot of a speed test so that they can prove to us, because not everyone's definition of high speed is the same. When we got to Italy, the guy assured us that it was high speed, and it was 10 meg download and slower upload. And I messaged him, I said, this isn't very fast. He goes, oh, that's really fast. That's super fast. That's high-speed internet. And my definition of high speed is a lot more than 10 meg.
Yeah, it was very painful. We had even slower speeds in Malaga and Granada, and that was on us for not doing our due diligence and asking first.
The next mistake we made was not packing any kitchen stuff. I know that sounds silly because we're trying to save space in our luggage, but there are a couple of things we could really use, because Airbnbs just have the basics, and usually what they do have is not very good. Like in Seville, our bathroom towels were sharper than our kitchen knife was. We only had one knife, the dullest knife I've ever had in my life. I think we were able to peel our apples with the spoon more easily than we did with the knife. So I really wish I would have brought one of those knife sharpeners like this, because every Airbnb, except for the one we're in right now, had dull knives.
I wish we would have brought storage containers, and every single time we pack up, I am just kicking myself for not bringing collapsible storage containers, because we've collected a few through our travels, but they do still take up space. You can shove other stuff in them, and it's just not nearly as convenient. We also ended up going and getting some basic kitchen towels, because kitchen towels are something not to be taken for granted, and we've stayed in places where they don't have any, or they give you a bath towel as a kitchen towel, and it is not the same. I know these seem kind of trivial, but if you were going through and slow traveling and this is the way you're going to be living for months, these basics really make a big difference in your comfort level.
And don't be afraid to ask the host to bring stuff either. When we got to this current place, there were no kitchen knives at all. None. And so I messaged the host right away and say, hey, can we get some kitchen knives? Because we cook a lot. And he brought us over a whole brand new set, really sharp, because they were still in the packaging. So we really appreciated that. When we were in Porto, we had two tiny little saucepans, no way big enough to cook pasta or rice or anything like that. So we messaged the host, and the next day they brought us a nice big pot for the stovetop so we could actually cook things.
All right, mistake number 6 is that we wasted a lot of time on travel planning, especially me, because I get analysis paralysis. I spent so much time examining every aspect of the Airbnbs and creating this big list of all these properties that I liked, that I forgot what I looked at. It was too much. And I also spent way too much time trying to figure out how to get to from point A to point B, and not actually booking anything.
This happens a lot, actually. We're still struggling with this, but I have convinced Amelia to just choose 3 to 5 places that we might want to stay, and we'll limit the search to that, and then we get it booked quickly, because sometimes we have so many things in there, by the time we make a decision, it's gone, and then we have to start over because we can't remember what we like. So the best advice is just to choose 3 to 5 places, put them in one of those little wish lists, and then make a decision quickly. Don't agonize over it. And also, you want to look for places that maybe are not booked right after your stay, because if you really like the place, you might want to extend your stay. But if it's already booked, you can't do that. And then you have to start the process over and go find another place.
Mistake number 7, we did not connect with the locals. And let me tell you, slow traveling can get lonely. Even though it's the 2 of us, we can still start to feel pretty lonely.
And also, some things are not advertised. So you might get to a location and wonder what's going on, like what are the activities? Why is there a parade? And a lot of these countries don't advertise anything. You can't find any information like out and about these things that are going on. But if you connect with some of the locals, either people who are native there or other expats, and a lot of times they can help you figure out what's going on, and actually you might get more enjoyment out of those activities.
We did that here in Toronto. We went to an Internations meetup and met some people here that had been living here from the U.S. and from other countries for like 15 years. It was great to hear other people's perspectives. We've also connected with locals, so you learn about a lot of other things going on. You can also ask your Airbnb host, but they typically just tell you about the tourist stuff, and you want to learn about more than that, at least we do.
Yeah, the Facebook groups are another thing. They're usually an expat group or some sort of local social group, or maybe a language exchange that you could go to. And that way you can meet locals, not just other expat, but actual locals who are from that area. And they're the ones that are really in the know. That's where we've learned so much about Albania while we've been here.
Now for some downsides that you may not be able to avoid, starting with that you won't have a permanent home. This was a tough one for me. I had misgivings about this and a lot of anxiety around the fact that, hey, when we needed to go back home and decompress, well, there's no place to go home to. It's not like I can go home and crawl into my old bed and then swap out my winter clothes for summer clothes because we're just on the road with our suitcases.
Yeah, this is indefinite now. We've decided that we don't need a home. We also save us a lot of money not having a home, but it is kind of weird to be technically homeless. Also, I really miss having a dog. We know of some people who travel with dogs, even cats, but we just don't want to undertake that responsibility. So without a permanent home where we could leave them with a house sitter or a pet sitter, we can't have our dogs anymore. We really miss having them.
Our second downside is that we do not have our routine. This is a really tough one for me too. I'm definitely more of a homebody than JP, and I like having my routine, and it is disrupted.
Even I kind of miss the routine a little bit. We used to get up, we go for a walk in the morning, come home, have breakfast, do some work, exercise, and we go to the mercado and get our fresh produce and come home and cook. And we had basically the same routine every day. A couple times a week, we might go hang out with some friends. It was really nice, but now we're moving around so much that we don't really have any sort of routine. When we get to a new place, we immediately have to establish a new routine, and that's happening, every 2 to 4 weeks now.
Yeah, so it's a little bit unsettling. Will tell you I have adjusted, and it does get easier because it is exciting to get out and learn your new routine, but there is definitely a downside to that.
The next downside is living out of a suitcase. It gets really old. We're always packing and unpacking every time we move from one place to the next. We're limited by what we can bring. We can only fit so much stuff in there. We left some stuff behind that we actually need and we're missing. And it's kind of a big hassle living out of a suitcase. I don't really like that.
Well, I'm going to tell you, it's not bothering me as much as I thought it would. I'm shocked to say this. Everybody, I'm putting it out there on record. I actually like not having so many choices, but there are times when I just want to be able to like, I'm just going to go grab this and I can just throw it in the suitcase. And then I have to think, well, wait a minute, how's this going to affect my packing and the weight and me lugging my suitcase up 4 flights of stairs to get into our next place? So it is a hassle.
Yeah, every time she wants to buy something new, I pull out the bottle and look, how much does this weigh? Because you don't have any extra space, Amelia, and that means it's going in my suitcase.
I know, I got to do more bicep curls so I can lift my luggage.
Yeah, and also at the end of this, at the end of the winter, we got to donate all of those winter clothes, which is kind of a hassle because we can't fit more summer clothes and all of our winter clothes in our current suitcases.
Yeah, and I would have preferred not to do that. Not that I have a problem donating clothes. I just don't like to be wasteful.
The next drawback is unpredictable lodging. The beds, the pillows kind of suck in some places. Like we have really flat pillows now, and the last place we had really thick, hard pillows. So both places are giving me a stiff neck. The mattresses aren't great, so they're kind of hurting my back. Plus, we have a screaming neighbor across the street from us who likes to go out and stand on her balcony at 5 in the morning and yell into the wind for no apparent reason. I don't have any idea what she's yelling at, but this happens almost every morning around 5. Sometimes it happens even in the middle of the night at midnight or 1. And throughout the day, we hear this woman yelling for no reason.
And another downside is that lodging can also be more expensive, as can your transportation costs. The problem with doing short-term lodging, whether it's a hotel or even an Airbnb, if you're staying at 1 up to 3 months, is that it's still going to be more expensive than a long-term lease of a year or more.
Yeah, the short-term rentals, you can expect them to be like 2 to 3 times more than the same place would rent for a year. And a hotel, we found, is 2 to 3 times more than the short-term rental. So it's extremely expensive to travel like this compared to living in one spot for the entire year. And then you've got the transportation going from one place to the next. So you're going to have to get trains or airfare or ferry rides. And that really adds up when you're moving every month versus like when we lived in Ecuador and we walked everywhere. We had like a $25 a month transportation bill. And here, or now that we're traveling around, it's usually a couple $100s a month.
And so it's not significantly more like we've just completely blown our budget. We are still spending so much less than when we spent in the United States. But if you're in a tight budget, it does add up.
The next downside is travel days are a hassle because We have to clean the Airbnb, wash all the dishes. We got to pack everything. Then we have to arrange our transportation to get to the next spot, or it may be the airport or the train station. A lot of times the check-in and check-out times don't align with our transportation schedule. So we're spending hours at the train station or the airport or a coffee shop waiting to get into a place or onto a plane. That can get really old.
And another downside is the impact of your healthcare and your insurance. If you need to get travel insurance, it can be a lot more expensive than regular insurance. We're lucky we have insurance through Ecuador, our private health insurance, which does cover us for travel. However, that's just emergencies. So if we need basic care, we'll have to pay out of pocket. Luckily, most of the world has very affordable health care, but you don't know what you're walking into. You don't have the relationship with your doctor. So if you have a chronic health condition, this may be a deal breaker for you.
Let us know in the comments below if you're thinking about slow travel or if any of these drawbacks are a deal breaker for you.
Despite the downsides of slow travel and our stupid rookie mistakes, we still think the good far outweighs the bad, and we talk about why in this video.
Yeah, Amelia was so skeptical when we first started this, but now she's loving it, and I am vindicated. So watch this video to find out why.
That's all we have for now. Leave us a like, please, before you go, and we will see you all in our next video.
Ciao.
Ciao.